Welcome back, everybody. We are again live, this time for part 2. Of course, we just had a little downtime there just to ensure that YouTube didn't get rid of all of that race action that we had for part 1 of the Pure Storage Kyalami 24-hour race in partnership with Solidarity E-Race and powered by RaceFace. My name is George Smith, taking over, of course, from our Americans, and of course they were joined up by Greg as well. So a little treat coming out to you viewers, and they'll be back in just a bit. So Ryan and myself are back representing our EU leg of this multi-faceted broadcast team. Ryan, you're looking forward to our next 2 hours that we've got here?
Well, George, I definitely am looking forward to the next 2 hours alongside you. Of course, we had a bit of a mammoth 4-hour stint earlier, and that was plenty enjoyable, plenty of action happening, and well, judging by what I heard from the boys just before they popped out for a couple of hours, is that we've had quite a bit of action happen whilst we've been away as well. We have a new leader. But, well, it hasn't come without their troubles.
Definitely not. Of course, the Sidemax Motorworks number 96 taking over a place that they're very comfortable in being in these 24-hour Kyalami endurance events, and unfortunately that was down to the losses that the likes of GTWR suffered, getting a big disconnect on their side, and that just put them out of the contention of being that sort of narrative that we're trying to push and saying, you know, can these guys do something here to stop Sidemax Motorworks from being able to make this a hat-trick of victories on this very iconic circuit, and in a race length that is very iconic in itself. 24 hours is the total race time. As you can see up at the top of the stream, you can see the countdown timer going down, just short of 14 hours remaining, 13 hours 53 minutes to be very precise. And in that kind of time, you can accomplish a lot of things. And for these teams and drivers, it's now the part of the race that a lot of focus and determination is needed. You cannot let your judgment slip for just a momentary lapse of judgment would cause you to be in a place that you didn't want to be. So it's interesting to see just how well these teams up at the front end of the order have managed to just control themselves and be able to just have that consistency that's needed to put themselves in this kind of a position.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 24 hours, it is a long time, and it's much longer than you give it credit for as well. Everyone, you know, says, oh, well, you know, it's a day, but like you said, George, think of everything you could do in a day if you had the opportunity. You know, it's just one of those things that you have to keep an eye on, is that so much can go right in 24 hours and so much can go wrong in 24 hours as well.
So much can go wrong. It has gone wrong for a lot of teams, but up the front end of the order, a lot of these teams just timing things quite well. And to be honest, good to see that the All-In Racing number 367 Bentley getting themselves in between those two Sidemax entries, the number 96 and 97 currently in position 2. And if you look down the order all the way down to the top 10, we've got a variety of cars within that top 10. We thought that there would be a lot of Audi dominance, and definitely being proven a little bit wrong by the likes of the Bentley entries. The Aston Martins coming and showing up strong as well. And then sitting in 10th place at the moment, the 258 Ferrari. They do have a 5-second time penalty to serve out, but in the bigger picture, 5 seconds in a 24-hour race isn't a lot.
No, it isn't, and I mean, 5 seconds in a race like this, like you said, doesn't really mean much. You know, a bit annoying, but you know, you'll get through it and you'll get past it. It's when you start getting some of the bigger penalties, like 30 seconds and you know, 15 seconds, that people start to get a little bit frustrated. But at the end of the day, well, if people were behaving themselves, they probably wouldn't be needing these penalties, as we can see the number 97 of Owen Winlock in the Sidemax Motorworks car coming into the pit lane. And they're going to be completing another one of their stops, and maybe we'll see another driver in the car for the next hour of the race.
So a big shout out to all the viewers joining us on the multiple platforms. Of course, bring this race over to Facebook on the Solidarity E-Race page. We've got a stream going out to the viewers on the Solidarity YouTube page as well. Then, of course, over on the RaceFace.Pro YouTube channel. So you can really pick and choose where you want to follow the race action from. Live timings also running up for the race if you do want to just kind of track the progress of your teammates, your family members, your loved ones. Wherever you are joining from, there is a little bit of racing action out for you. The MSV Racing number 962 currently sitting in 7th place, and trying to see if they can get a little bit closer to the back end of that number 100 entry. And of course, the local team that's doing quite well within the top 10 then is that number 100. 10.6 seconds is the gap between them, but the Sarashi Racing entry currently with their driver Stefan Wessels behind the wheel, doing some good things to fly that South African flag up high. We talked about a mixture of drivers coming from all across the world, and of course a lot of these drivers being South African and getting to put themselves up against some of the very talented names that we get to see in the international scene.
Definitely so, and it is great to see so many South African teams out here. And I mean, of course, being a South African sim race would be expected, but it's great to see them getting involved with some of the international teams as well, and plenty of talent all the way throughout the field as well. But looking through the top 10 positions at the moment, George, it's well, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that most of the people that have picked an Audi out here today are looking pretty confident and probably got a big smile on their face at this point in time. Top 6 cars, 5 of which are Audis. Obviously, only the second placed Bentley splitting that up from being an all Audi top 5 at this point in time.
Very strong competitor. We knew that the manufacturer coming into things would be one to keep an eye out on. Of course, we kind of predicted as well that there would be some more Porsches up towards the front end, but there's only 3 of those Porsches on the grid. A lot of Audis, a lot of Aston Martins, a mixture of Bentleys coming through as well. But good to see that the teams that are picking up the Audis are putting them to good use. A very dominant manufacturer, especially around the circuit. We know the way that the BOP goes. We know that these kind of things get adjusted on a regular basis. And as things stand at the moment, it's a car to be there, especially if you're looking to have a bit of a balance between that epic speed as well as just having something that has the legs to go the long distance as well. So it's all about managing your stints, making sure that your drivers are doing what they need to do behind the wheel, and getting your car over that checkered flag. By the time this race concludes, that race flag, or the checkered flag, waves tomorrow morning in South Africa at 12 o'clock. So still plenty of time for things to shift themselves on. We go on board with Kevin today in the Rigoli Racing EGA number 11, as we get to see a little bit of the darkness that we were talking about earlier on. It wasn't quite as dark as it's gotten now out on the circuit, and it's always good to see just how these different drivers sort of attack the circuit in these kind of conditions. Really the place that you have to have your focus at 100%. Need to make sure that you're putting in all the same amount of effort that you put in from the start of the race, and that's kind of where it all comes down to, right? It's not there's no afforded downtime from anyone. You have to make sure you bring your A game from the get-go and continue to bring it out here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we've discussed it quite a few times before, haven't we, in past broadcasts, George, that I mean, you can't show up to races like these anymore and not have a very good team. You can't really... I hesitate to say it because it's a term that not many people like hearing, but you can't be carried to a win in a race like this. It just doesn't happen. Your team needs to be, comprised of committed drivers that are gonna, they're gonna push to get the best out of themselves and get the best out of their teammates as well. And you can't just have 3 superstars and 1 rookie in a team lineup and expect to go out and win a 24-hour race. You need to have a solid roster of driver, and all the teams up at the top here, you're seeing just that. They have solid rosters of drivers that, they trust each other. They've worked together with each other before, and you know, particularly with like say the SideMax team. I mean, they're leading at the moment. Yes, leading because there was a disconnect by the GTWR team, but you know, internet connections, stability, it's, you know, it's all got to come together. But that team in the 96, they've been here before, twice in fact, and they've come out on top. They've endured it, you know, on both previous occasions, and they're looking to do that here for a third time as well. But you know, all of these teams out here, they've come here with, you know, drivers that, like you said, are 100% committed and 100%, you know, looking to pull their own weight in this race.
A good point really is that, you know, no single pyramid can just be built up on one person's shoulders. Everybody has to contribute equally and be able to bring something special to that team for their driver stints. And taking a look at our YouTube chat as well, just a shout out, just keeping a sort of eye out on the RaceFace.Pro YouTube chat at the moment. Can't bring all the chats up at the same time, but looking at some of those comments that come in, nice to just see everybody out here. And of course, not every team suffering the same good luck that some of the top lying teams have had. Looking at Jason Absmeyer here for Toro in that 696. Good to see him back behind the wheel doing some night stint driving. His teammate Alaric Ainslin in the chat, the owner of Toro themselves. I see that PWSR also in the chat, Jason from Royan from WRG here as well. So nice to see everybody just getting behind the support side, you know, just helping us grow sim racing as a whole. No event is perfect. There's always going to be things that can be adapted and changed going forward. But I think just from all of us on this side of the stick, it's just nice to kind of be here and be able to bring a whole community together and all be able to participate in something that is a very epic behind the scenes drive in bringing sim racing to the bigger sort of audience and helping to just give sponsors a place to have some representation out. And without those sponsors, all of this wouldn't be possible. So of course, a big shout out always goes to Pure Storage, NEC, DataSciences, Oxide, AMD and SuperMicro for getting behind our initiative. And of course, Solidarity and RaceFace partnering up here to bring you this Kyalami 24. So just epic stuff. I think a big round of applause is well deserved to everybody for coming through. See that JC Hrobler also up here and just showing us some love. Looks like a lot of the drivers here, whether they are driving at the time or not, just sort of keeping it up, burning the midnight oil. It's a long stint, you know, you can't really afford to have a nap. You can try and alternate drivers out, but somebody's always going to be there to support the driver in the car. And that kind of just goes to show just how much effort is involved in this. Over 40 teams getting involved. Oh, big shunt coming in there on the number 23 as the Lamborghini finds themselves caught out of position. Just unfortunately for them at the top of Leeuwkop, going to run into a bit of trouble.
I think that was the number 97 of Lucas Kraser as well, that just had a little bit of a nibble on the back end of the Lamborghini. Probably just trying to make his way through traffic and misjudging it slightly. One of the things I do love about the night scenes around here, George, you can see the exhaust pipes of the Lamborghini glowing in the dark here. And it's fantastic to see on a lot of these cars as well. You can see it there on the Audis at the same time. And this is one of the elements of night racing that that I really do think is special. You know, there are so many things you don't notice in the daytime that that start to become way more apparent during the night stints.
Very true. You know, those visuals kind of change themselves up. Those conditions do change. You can just see all the highlights of Kyalami Business Park in the background. You know, if you do visit the track in real life, you do have a really nice place to watch some racing if you are owning a business that is sort of situated in the business park on the outskirts of the circuit. A lot of those buildings have viewing decks sort of built into the buildings on the roof. So a lot of the business executives have the opportunity to invite some key staff members, maybe family around, and enjoy the racing that takes place live. Of course, in the COVID times, it's difficult to really predict when the next races are always going to be. At least in the sim racing world, these kind of things can be organized. We can kind of head out regardless of what is happening in the big wide world outside there, and we can always bring some of that race action coming down. So of course, Wojtek Zakiri in the Lamborghini did get past Mumford in that pass at the top of Leocorp a couple of laps ago. So you know, also just doing some work to try and get themselves further through the field. And you can just see a whole talented list of drivers still in this race, and of course taking over what will be the difficult stint driving in the nighttime before we see that sunrise coming back up tomorrow morning. And you know, maybe a breath of fresh air being breathed from teams that really didn't put in the nighttime effort.
Yeah, the nighttime stint, so many things can change throughout the night, and it's one of those elements where if you've ever watched a 24-hour race before, you know, and you go into it, you watch the first few hours, and then say, okay, I'm gonna go to bed and wake up the next morning. You wake up the next morning, maybe 8-9 hours has passed. The entire dynamic of the race could have changed, and the night stint will do that. You know, there's so much that can go wrong in the night stint. There's so much that can happen, and it really is. I mean, besides probably the last hour of the race, I think and the first hour, it's probably the most important part of the race, and it's the one where, you know, if mistakes are going to be made, they're going to be made now.
It's probably the hardest part as a broadcaster and commentator to be able to take a break from all the action. You know, we've got multiple teams involved here. We've got commentators joining in different stints to try and cover as much of the race as possible. Of course, slight downtimes when we do have to switch over to a new stream, but you know, that's a very brief amount of time. And throughout the rest of the duration, there's just permanent action that needs to be covered. And for us as commentators, it's so hard to take downtime, because you know that as soon as you take your eyes off, you try and get yourself a little bit of shut-eye in. You could miss something that is just crazy to being crucial in the race. So I find that that's probably the hardest part as a commentator is actually sort of saying, okay, well, I need to go and get some shut-eye in. And for a lot of these drivers, I think it's also important that they do sort of rotate their drivers out. They do get some rest in for the drivers that you know, have a bit of time before their next stint. But it's a bit of a gamble, a bit of a risk. If your next driver coming in suddenly has some kind of a technical issue, you need to be able to sub somebody else into that car, or you will have some costly time going your way. So we can just see from Tinus Puerta as we ride on the splitter cam coming down, making their way through. There's some, of course, blue flags being waved out. They're going to move out of the way of the Bentley behind them, and just thinking better off trying to go side by side at this stage of the race through Cheetah, and just backing it up just slightly. So that's P13 now behind Christian Fensham in the Power Rangers Racing 274. Just going to probably ease up on the start-finish straight here, let the Bentley through. It's not a battle that they're going to be fighting with, so rather let the car through and focus on what you can.
Yeah, wise decision. And at this stage in the race, not even at the halfway mark at this point. That is when you and I will sign off for the evening, I think it is, George, when we get to the halfway mark in the race, and Team America will truly take over for, I think, the next 4-6 hours. But plenty still to play for at this point in the race, and the 505 Bentley going to have a look up the inside and take that one fairly nicely. And the Power Rangers Racing Ferrari not really putting up too much of a fight there, and I think rather sensibly thinking to themselves, well, the 505 is quicker, we've got plenty of the race still to go, let's just let them through, race ourselves, and see where we end up later on in the race. And it could be that, you know, maybe letting the 505 through is a good decision in the end, because maybe the 505 will go ahead and get itself caught up in a couple of incidents, and you'll gain that time back anyway.
Yeah, definitely not too much of an effort being extended out there from the Power Rangers Racing 274 was they coming into Clubhouse, leaving the door wide open and allowing the 505 to just slot on by. So the 274 either not quite aware that the car coming behind them was for position, or just making that call to themselves that it wasn't a battle that they wanted to take themselves. Looking at Gabriel Rodriguez in the Square Racing Porsche, they're currently in P25, 1.6 seconds behind the likes of the number 24 Bentley, piloted out by Mulder. And right now that Bentley is getting caught up a little bit in traffic as well, so maybe just navigating it themselves, but using this to their advantage. You know, once a driver starts to get caught up in the field, it's difficult to pass in the darkness, and you can kind of use that to your advantage as a driver. So just trying to take what you can where you can, and very deep into the second corner there of Crowthorne. Rodriguez, well, I do love the nighttime, especially when we get to see the sparks getting kicked up from those rear diffusers as they you know, run over some of the high parts of the track. Very low cars, and kicking up the sparks in the darkness, it's always nice to see.
Yeah, the sparks are absolutely fantastic, and it's one of those things that in the daytime you can see them, but of course they are so much more prominent in the night, in the darkness, because they, you know, they illuminate the back of the car. And I mean, if you're into photography, you can get some absolutely fantastic screenshots with the sparks in the dark conditions. But at this point in time, the number 24 Bentley probably not thinking too much about these sparks coming from behind its car, and probably more focusing on the fact that the number 48 Porsche of Rodriguez is catching up to them and only 0.6 of a second behind them now. So you can just see the 4 headlights on the front of that Porsche 911 just getting closer and closer by the corner.
Not wrong. Definitely not something that a driver in their place would be thinking about, as the sparks from the back end of their diffuser. But for us as broadcasters, something that we can just observe and appreciate. You're not wrong. Rodriguez catching up at a rapid rate. A good exit actually coming out then from the BWR Griffins, and allowing themselves to get a good run away down at the start-finish straight. But Gabriel Rodriguez just trying to use every advantage possible to them as they make their way onto the back end of that BWR Bentley, trying to see if they can get the Porsche a little bit higher up the order. I think they heard what I said earlier on. My favorite manufacturer needs to do some more, and if this is one of the entries that maybe can come in. Currently sitting in second of the Porsches, only 3 of them out here. Jason Absmeyer in the 696, the lead Porsche, then Rodriguez here in 25th place, and then sitting in third, PWSR in the form of Leslie Oliphant in the 101. And from the chat, we can see in the YouTube chat that unfortunately PWSR having another disconnect when they were doing their driver swaps out. So certainly being plagued out is Patterson Works Sim Racing, not having the race that they would have wanted to have. But the Square Racing team here, in the form of the number 48, certainly making up time where they need to. We see that the last split update being just under 0.4 of a second now, 0.396, and looking good towards the top of Leeuwcorp for them to get the move done. Or PWR getting caught out a little bit by the Bentley in front of them then is going to be very slow coming out of Crocodile as they send it in through Cheetah. You can just see how close these two drivers are driving in these dark conditions.
Yeah, mentioning about the car earlier, 3 disconnects at this point in time for was it PWR and
PWSR, yeah.
PWSR, yeah. I mean, when it's not your day, it's not your day, I suppose. I mean, I've learned that the hard way before, and I'm pretty sure you have as well, George. But you know, sometimes things just go wrong, and it's a shame, but you know, a lot of the time it is out of your hands, and you just gotta, you know, see what you can learn from it, and just go into the next race and try and build on whatever was, you know, potentially a poor result. But the important thing is, there's a lot of people that have faced issues here today, but they're still going. There's plenty of teams here quite a few laps down, but they're committed to finishing the race, and you know, I can respect that, George. I can really respect a team of drivers that, you know, 30, 40 laps down, they're still here. They're still going to be here. They're committed to reaching the end of the race, and it's difficult to do that. And you know, and it deserves to get some recognition.
For sure, I think it would be unfair to not mention how cool it is for the teams that are driving, that they are just sticking it out to the very end or trying their best, you know, until something completely crashes out and they're unable to join once again, you know, just stick it out and see where you end up. Other drivers might be plagued with similar issues at some point. 13 hours to go on the clock. But yeah, big shout out to all the teams that have had some issues and continued out here and racing regardless of you know, where they're going to place up. You know when you're 30, 40 laps down, that you could be in a bad place. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, 18, 19 laps, it's all relative. You know, you can still finish a race out with your team, still have a good time at doing it. You get some good track experience, good opportunities to kind of learn what it's like driving in the events. You're not always going to be able to front end of the order unless I guess you side max, but for a lot of these drivers you are going to just get caught out in traffic, get to deal with some of the blue flag conditions, get to have on track positions whilst trying to navigate through some of those very narrow channels that are made only available by the drivers giving you the space to do so. So I think you know, in the bigger picture, a lot of these drivers have been respecting the rules, listening out to the marshals with the blue flags. Mike LaRue with a big drifty boy coming out of the Exeter barbecue, catches the rear end just in time. We saw the BWR team also just running a little bit wide coming into there. And then this right-hander of Sunset, I find to be one of the trickiest corners out here, especially if your setup isn't quite right. It can be very nerve-wracking at the speed that you can really carry into it.
Yeah, it definitely is one of the more committed corners where you have to really nail that apex, especially the entry and the exit as well. Another corner up towards the top of the circuit here, Leeucott, have to get this one right. Poor exit here can affect your lap time significantly, and the 344 Lexus having to move out of the way for the number 100 Audi making its way through. And of course that's the Audi that's up in 4th place at the moment, driven by Stefan Wessels at this stage in the race. So one of the top 5 goes on through, and the Lexus is now going to be hoping that the Audi in front has to move over and slow themselves down.
Still just following on then with Mike LaRue, trying to see if they can get themselves a little bit closer to the back end of Richardson. You see in the chat, we've got Alaric Enslin just asking to please give some motivation to the team struggling. And I certainly will try my best to bring motivation out there. To me, I'm very proud of all the entries that have come through. I think it brings a big smile to my face seeing so many familiar names out on the circuit, still just battling it out, even though things don't always go the right way. And knowing that, you know, this is just one race in the bigger picture of sim racing, there's still going to be multiple opportunities for other events to happen. Of course, the 24-hour of Kyalami here is something that we've been working on for a while behind the scenes to get together. And I'm sure that going forward, you know, there'll be other endurance races, maybe not full 24-hour races, but, you know, hopefully once a year we could at least do one 24-hour race here with Solidarity and RaceFace. I think that would be quite a cool target to kind of set on, as we see Richardson going very defensive, LaRue trying to squeeze around the outside of the Audi as they make their way up to the top of Leeucott. That door going to be opened up then for the Lexus to try and squeeze through on the inside. I think that move is going to be done. A nice little move coming out from LaRue there. Richardson just making the space, and behind them they've got, of course, the front runners in that number 11 trying to make their way through the traffic that is in front of them. So cars, like we said, battling it out on track for position, and then having to deal with some blue flags. I think PWSR, Ryan, they're asking in the chat, you know, how they need to learn from being disconnected. I think a little bit frustrated coming out there from them, and I think you can maybe answer that, or I can jump in.
I mean, it's difficult because obviously a disconnect is I mean, unless you're intentionally disconnecting yourself, it's not really your fault, and it's hard to. There isn't really anything you can kind of learn from that. The only thing you can hope is that it doesn't happen again, realistically. But you know, the issues that people have faced today are issues that, I mean, we see them in every endurance race, don't we, George? I mean, can you name an endurance race off the top of your head where we haven't seen a disconnect from a single team? I mean,
No,
it's you know, it's one of the issues, unfortunately, with the fact that, you know, everything, you know, all this has to be done, you know, on a global scale, should we say? And you know, it's just one of those things where these are the kind of issues that you face, and this is why some esports tournaments will run, you know, on LAN setups and all that sort of stuff to try and mitigate some of these issues. But you know, in the sim racing scene, in the current global situation that we're in, you know, there's only so much you can do, and unfortunately, you know, people have got unlucky with disconnects today. I myself, it was in a not 6 hour spa, it's a 12-hour spa. My team in 4th place disconnected from the race, couldn't rejoin. That was it. You know, 7 hours into the race, just gone down the drain in an instant, and it sucks. But you know, the only thing you can really do is just keep going if you can, and if not, the next time you show up to the race, just hope it doesn't happen again. There's not really much you can do about it.
For sure, I think it also goes to kind of just say that disconnects are one thing, but you know, you can still do your best to have a good time on the track. You know, you can put in consistent times. Sure, you might lose time with a disconnect issue, but it doesn't mean to say that your car's had a flawless run. Mistakes get made by drivers. No one is superhuman. There are slip-ups that do take place, and I guess I exclude the teams that have had you know, flawless races from what we've seen on the stream. But behind the scenes, there might have been you know, mistakes that they've made, braking points that they've missed, same sort of things that you know, the regular people go through. It all comes down to consistency and trying to make sure that, I think you touched on it, mitigate as many of those factors as you can. But no race is perfect. I think that's the way that racing goes, and you just have to make the best of a bad situation sometimes.
Yeah, and it's not easy as well. I mean, you know, let's not forget, you know, that the majority of the sim racing community, they do sim racing for a hobby. You know, for you and I, George, to sit here and commentate, it's a hobby. You know, it's you know, it's something we love to do, and it's something we invest time in. And when we race as well, we do this as a hobby. Yes, there are some people that do it as a job, but sim racing isn't really at the same level as other, you know, should we say, esports platforms at this point in time, and it'll grow eventually to be that size. But as of right now, you know, a lot of people do this as a hobby, and it can be really frustrating when, you know, you give up so much of your free time to commit to something, and then it all goes wrong, and you know, you just can't seem to catch a break, and you think the whole world's against you you know, at some point. But the reality is, unfortunately, it just comes down to luck in some of these situations, and sometimes you will feel like you've got all the bad luck in the world. I can relate to that. I've crashed out of, well, I haven't crashed out, I've crashed in the last 6 endurance races that I've been racing in. But I still give up the free time on a weekend when I can to commit to a race, because I tell myself it'll be different this time. And maybe it will be, maybe it won't. But you never know if you try, and, you know, unfortunately, as much as there's quite a few teams probably down in the dumps today because of how their race has gone, you can't let it get your head down for too long.
No, it's a good point on that. Is a lot of us are hobbyists, just enthusiastic about the passion of sim racing. You know, before there were broadcasts and big sort of events taking place, we were out on circuit just fighting it out for pride, weren't we? So, you know, it is a hobbyist sort of scene. There are teams and drivers that certainly have been able to sort of convert it more into a good sim racing sort of esports series. And for those drivers and those teams, you know, I applaud them, because I think it's great to see that people are able to sort of convert hobbies into things that are more serious, to maybe replace the repetitive day-to-day grind that they had to do before they got into sim racing. And I think that as the scene develops, as we start to see more and more people taking to sim racing, I think you know, those opportunities for those teams and drivers, race engineers, people that create setups, things like that, I think that just opens up the whole world that they're able to do inside of what we have always traditionally just done as hobbyists. So it is cool to be able to sort of see it go through this transition, to kind of go from something that people didn't know too much about, and see it get highlighted more and more. And without all the teams and drivers that have entered into races like this one, we wouldn't be able to be out here, you know, broadcasting a race for 24 hours. So, you know, it all kind of, everybody holds their hand in creating something that's epic. And unfortunately, you touched on it. You can't let yourself get down too much because you've had one bad showing in a race. This is probably one of the most grueling events that you can put yourself into, a 24-hour race. Personally, not something that I've been able to individually participate in yet, or be able to finish. So hopefully, as we go on with this year, I'll be able to tick that off my bucket list. I've enjoyed a couple of endurance races, sharing cars with some talented drivers, far more talented than myself. And you know, every time you do that, you get into the car, you share it with somebody that's a little bit more experienced than you. You get to learn, and you get to develop your driving ability. And you don't always have to be the quickest car on the circuit, but certainly having that level of consistency, being able to just bash out a good stint of 2 hours maybe behind the wheel, and without having too much issues in terms of variation in your pace, you know, that goes a long way in getting picked up by these big teams.
It does, and you know, it's a great point you mentioned about the the 258 car just riding the curb a bit too aggressively, I think, there. Trying to get past the 666. But to touch on when he said about sharing the car with someone, you know, sharing the car with someone better than you, sharing the car with someone new, it really is a special kind of experience. I mean, I've had 7 different teammates, I think, over the course of all the endurance races that I've done, and you learn so much by driving with different people. You learn so much by driving with people that are better than you. And, you know, it really is special, and I think that's one of the most attractive things about endurance races is, you know, it's, people always say racing is a team sport, and it is. But I think racing is way more of a team sport in the endurance sense than it could ever be in the sprint sense. And I think that's just, you know, one of the things that is special about endurance racing. But when you have to do endurance racing with, say, drivers from America, Europe, South Africa, Australia, Asia, you're going to run into problems. And, you know, the solutions to those problems are not always ideal. But at the end of the day, you know, you've got to come up with something, and something is better than nothing.
You gotta adapt. You gotta try things as well. You know, the Solidarity E-Race side of things has always traditionally just been open to South African competitors. I think in partnership here with RaceFace, something new to be explored was obviously putting our best drivers from South Africa up against some of the entries that came in from the rest of the world. And you know, maybe when things are said and done, we go back to the drawing board. We look at you know, did it work out? Was it something that you know, brought joy to everybody? Was it something that feasibly could be done again? That's all, you know, going to be considered after the race is said and done. Oh, Jason Absmeyer trying to go on the inside there, trying to make his way through some blue flag traffic, I believe. Was that blue flag traffic, or was that for position? It could have been for position.
I think this was for position.
Coming down, we get a race replay as they come down into Crowthorne. And oh, that door just got closed out, and Jason coming into contact then. So I know that Alec Enslin going to be stepping into the Toro 696 Porsche very soon. Yeah, it was full position. They're 2.2 seconds down the road now from that number 520. So as things stand, Toro looking good on pace to catch up to some of those drivers. Right now, the 258 also getting closer to possibly being able to get a spot off this 666 Audi. We'll see going past our camera just in front of the Ferrari as they go through sunset. So you said it, Ryan. There's going to be sort of change-ups across the grid, especially at this part of the race. It's tiring to be out there, and some of these drivers may be feeling a little bit of fatigue, and they just got to kind of grind on, make sure that they get the car back to the pit box when their stint is done, hand it over to their next fresh set of eyes, and see what they can do behind the wheel.
Yeah, this is where we will start to see some of the nighttime drivers for a few of these teams, and obviously some of them won't have nighttime drivers specifically. They'll kind of just, you know, some teams that I do know from experience will kind of just say, oh, well, you know, we'll wing it, we'll see how it goes. But some of these teams will have, you know, dedicated drivers that have either trained for the night session, or they're drivers that are say in other countries, other parts of the world where, you know, the fatigue element won't really affect them too much. Like, for example, if you have a driver from the States, and funny enough, we can actually kind of chime in on the SideMax Motorworks team, because they have Michael Kundachoglu in the car at the moment, and he is, of course, in Canada. And he was in the car earlier, but kind of makes a bit of sense now that that he would come back into the car, and that the likes of George Booth, being Killian Ryan Meenan, would make, you know, just take a few hours out and just see how things go, and obviously allow him to drive in the car. And of course, where he is in the world right now, it's going to be much earlier in the day, so he won't be feeling the fatigue as much as the likes of maybe George Boothby or Killian Ryan Meenan will be.
True, good point coming out there. Teams being comprised of drivers from different time zones, being able to kind of negate some of those fatigue factors indeed. Apostopoulos here in the 258, coming into contact then with the 666, both going to be parked up then at the top of Leocorp, and that is going to be cost. It looks like Apostopoulos just getting back on the brakes and just kind of waiting for the 666 to get going again. Here we'll see a replay coming in as they come to the top of the hairpin at the top of the hill. Just a little bit too much speed carried in there by the Ferrari, and just waiting for the 666 to get going again, realizing that they had made that mistake, and just giving that position back again doesn't negate the damage that gets picked up when you are sort of rammed from the rear, so to speak. And very sensitive aero cars, these GT3s, you can't predict just how much damage they're going to be feeling there. The front end of the Ferrari, the back end of the Audi, both going to be impacted.
Well, as some battles for position continue to develop, we have another battle for position here. This is the number 13 against the 158, the Ida Pro Esports team Bentley. Another team racing in the RCI World Tour, I believe, at this point in time, and closing in on that number 13 Aston Martin. A car off on the gravel at the top of Leocorp as well. Not entirely sure. I think that might have been the Aston Martin that was just a bit further behind there, the 714. Just potentially off on the gravel. I have seen a few of those moves in endurance races recently, George, with drivers diving out of the way onto the gravel to let some people past. It's an interesting strategy for allowing blue flag cars through. I'm not entirely sure, as a car trying to lap someone, that I would be too appreciative of someone throwing themselves out of the way. It kind of sends the wrong message, as if they're trying to avoid me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's hard to get into the head of just what drivers are doing all the time. We can see Emmanuel Cardinali here in that 158, going to go side by side with the number 13 on the exit then to Barbecue, actually going to catch on to one another. Difficult corner to go side by side through if you're not both going to be giving space. And I guess the Aston Martin and the Bentley just fighting it out for position, not quite realizing that they were in close proximity, but a little bit of rubbing is racing going on there. The Bentley keeping the pressure on, finding themselves maybe losing a little bit of power there. They've got obviously blue flags being waved out and needing to jump out of the way where they can. So it's just a case of making sure that you do the right thing at the right time. And sometimes you're in a battle and it's better to just kind of let the car that isn't going to be there. I think the Bentley then trying to slip themselves through will get that move done on the all-in racing number 13. They are going to be side by side coming down through Mineshaft, but the Bentley there just kind of sneaking in behind the Audi, knew that the lead car would be kind of coming through with the blue flags. And the Bentley just putting themselves right behind that Audi at the top of the Leeuwcorp. So some good planning coming down from Emmanuel there as they make their way down towards Ingwe.
So the 158 making up positions. And of course P8 overall for them at this point in time, and looking down throughout the field, there does seem to be a battle on for a podium place at this point in time. George, we have a 367 of the all-in racing team and the second of the Sidemax Motorworks cars as well, so it seems 0.8 of a second between the two of them. And do we potentially have a race on our hands for second place at this point?
Inside Max would be absolutely chuffed if they could get themselves a 1-2 by the end of it. 13 hours though on the clock kind of rings the bell in my mind to say that there's a lot of racing still to take place. It doesn't take away from the excitement at the possibility of the 97 getting past the 367. But I get caught up with my own words as they make the approach up, and just got to keep an eye out on that gap. A lot of traffic to negate and try and navigate through. Kind of makes these gaps appear larger at times than it is, and suddenly it can all catch up. You know, one back marker position holding you up through a part of the track that doesn't impact the driver chasing you for that place, and you find yourself in a spot to bother.
Yeah, Lucas Kraser trying to get through at the moment, and Aston Martin will let them through. And they did lose a few tenths over the previous lap. It was 0.7 of a second. It's now 1.1 seconds, so a bit of time lost for the Sidemax Motorworks Audi number 97. And of course, we do kind of... Ooh! Someone off at turn one. Who is that?
Didn't quite get a glimpse of it on my side there, but that gap between the number 97 Audi and the 367 Bentley increasing as they made their way through the last of sector 3 on that lap, and the updates as they come out through Sunset then drops it back down 9/10. So certainly some pace being picked up by that Sidemax Motorsport car sitting in P3.
The replay unfortunately won't show us exactly what happened to the number 420, but that Lexus stranded on the inside of turn 2. Does finally get itself going again once the cars have cleared and rejoins the circuit safely. That's always nice to see.
Safe re-entries, very important to obviously not impact the other cars on the circuit, and just doing the right thing in just waiting it out and making sure that they were cleared of traffic before they got into that position. As we see Jason Absmeyer going to make that move then on the 520 Aston Martin, this time alongside, before they come down into the braking zone for the left-hander of Crowthorne. Jason doing a good job at just having a bit of a recovery. We saw him in a contact early on, but has managed to get through and get themselves back up to P14 here.
Jason Amsmeyer manages to get past the 520, this time without contact. We saw them trying to make a move on the Aston Martin earlier in turn 2. And the Tauro Porsche, as you said, George, up into 14th place. And that car having to recover positions that it lost earlier on in the race. They were running as high as 4th earlier on. But unfortunately now, not running as close as they were before. 13 hours to go, still plenty can happen in this race, and plenty of time for the likes of Jason Absmeyer, Ulrich Emslin, and the other drivers in the Toro car to make up those lost places and still finish out this 24-hour race with a decent finishing position.
See the number 57 just running out wide, coming into Crocodile there as well. So a couple of drivers maybe just getting caught out by the braking zones in the darkness. It's certainly a place that is not very well lit, old Kyalami, in the dark. Some good visibility coming out from their headlights, but you have to rely a lot on that. You can see Lucas Kraser still trying to get past the likes of Crowell in that 367, and the battle for the podium position spots continues and continues to heat at SideMax Motorworks, trying to get themselves into that proverbial 1-2, try and lock out the front row, have two cars up at the front end, and both of them quite a couple of laps or 2 laps behind the leaders then in the leading number 96 SideMax Motorworks sister vehicle. So good work being done to get up through the field. We see Vessels in the number 100 sitting in P4, Centorino. I lose my words again as some multi-nationalist names come through. We've got a whole bunch of drivers to sort of learn and try and keep up to date with. They find themselves in P5, rounding out that 5th position spot. And the Audi is still sitting dominant if you look at the top 5 cars. Even looking down to the top 10, lots of Audis being featured up there.
Yeah, and of course one of those Audis at the moment trying to put SideMax Motorworks into a 1-2 position. The Helicam struggles to figure out which car it should be looking at, and Lucas Kraser continues his pursuit of the 367 Bentley. And I mean, we've spoken already about how, you know, the number 96 car is looking to make it a hat trick of Kyalami 24-hour wins, but I mean, George, imagine what it would mean, what a statement it would be for this team to come out with a 1-2 in a 24-hour race as well, and not a 1-2, you know, by pro class and one, you know, and silver class, you know, a 1-2 overall.
I mean, that's something that certainly is going to go a long way and added on to the sim racing CV if they can get themselves to the checkered flag this way. Of course, you guys are watching the Pure Storage 24-hour of Kyalami in partnership with Solidarity E-Race and powered by RaceFace. Big shout out to all our sponsors, NEC, DataSciences, Oxide, AMD, and SuperMicro. My name is George Smith. I almost just dropped all the middle words of my sentences at this point of the evening. And I've, of course, joined in the box by Ryan Gill. We are running a 2-man's comm team for the next hour. We did so for the last hour. And then we hand over to the American broadcast team. That's Nick Setnick, Mike Jones, and Jesse Lee jumping in to handle a good 6-hour portion before we rejoin again in the morning session. And then Greg Maloney and Clark King will be back again as we round out the race. So plenty of action still to be covered and plenty of streaming still to go. We can see the all-in racing battle between SideMax going down. as the 367 tries to stay defensive, using a bit of the lap traffic to keep themselves a couple of car lengths out of danger. But it doesn't last too long, does it? You know, once you've cleared that traffic, once they've cleared that traffic, it's a knife fight once again.
Definitely is, and that's where the traffic management skill comes in handy, and a bit of luck that you need to play on your side as well. You can see the flashing there from the SideMax Motorworks 97 car wanting to get past, but it's not being made particularly easy, although they will get past the Aston Martin. But now they find themselves with the 505 Bentley in their way as well. So the traffic playing into the hands of the 367 at this point in time. And for the all-in racing team, it's exactly what they want. And just as the SideMax Motorworks Audi clears the Bentley, the 367 puts another car between them and their opponents. And this is the kind of traffic management that, you know, you love to see from these kind of teams, using it to their advantage. And it has to be said, George, you know, it's impressive in the way that these guys can navigate the traffic, not just safely, but effectively, to the point where it almost looks like it's been planned.
It does kind of give you that that sort of planned out vibe. I mean, it's not something that you can really control, but you can certainly put yourself into the best position when you are placed in that sort of situation. And we do just see, as we jump down to Hansi Myberg in the TTHR 505, they themselves are trying to get past the number 57 with Richardson at the wheels, half second down. Richardson actually going to be peeling off into the pit, so that's going to be done and dusted. See the flashing lights of the Aston Martin behind them, just indicating that they are trying to make the move. They want to get that pass done. Of course, that's going to just be under blue flag conditions for the 505. So Hansi Myberg just going to leave that door open as they come down into the left-hander and allow the teams that are making progress towards the front to just slot on by on the inside line.
As Lucas Kraser tries to home in on the 367, probably thinking to himself, when will the traffic end? And, well, the unfortunate news for Lucas Kraser is that realistically, the only big gap on the circuit is actually behind them. You can kind of see the 666 on their own, pretty much, in a very well socially distanced bubble. There is some space further up ahead, but the 367 and the 97 have a ways to go yet before they find that big gap on the front straight. So it's going to be quite a bit more traffic management for both of these cars to do for the next few laps until they can get to that clean air. But once they do get to that clean air, that's when the number 97 is really going to be hoping to close down on the 367 and hopefully get the move done before they close in on traffic again. Traffic
Management, consistency out on the track, and of course not being plagued with any of the in-game difficulties that some of the other teams have had. I think that's the name of the game here. We see Robert Hart, unfortunately, finding themselves out in the gravel, going to be just turning that Aston Martin around slowly. Oh, in the background, another Aston just running a little bit wide and having to come off. We are going to just see what took place here. Flashing lights as Robert does the right thing to let the faster cars come through. Maybe just catching himself unawares then, as it looked like he was almost by himself. Oh no. Carried a lot of speed coming down into Clubhouse and has tangled up with that Lexus. So unfortunately for Robert Hart. Oh, that is a terrible rejoin that actually came out from the Lexus. It looked like Robert Hart doing the right thing, just sitting on the brakes for as long as possible, then tried to sort of dig himself out of the gravel to get turned around again. But that could have been a terrible accident, could have gone a lot worse than it actually did. still just see Robert Hart trying to get that car turned around.
As soon as he does, though, the Aston Martin off the track.
Yeah, and the Aston kind of probably, the other Aston Martin probably thought that the Hart Racing team was going to rejoin the circuit. It wasn't kind of the intention. They were going to probably just track along in the gravel for a little bit before they could. And I think the other Aston decided to take things into their own hand. They decided that they were going to try and avoid it to the right-hand side, sent themselves into the gravel, but luckily not really spinning themselves around.
So the Black Widow Racing Vipers 969 car, they found themselves with a chance at a position, and that's going to be a dive on the 221. That sends the 221 wide. The 999, I believe that is, has to take avoiding action there. And no place gained for the Bentley at this point in time, but maybe a bit of an ambitious move, and we're going to have another look here up towards Leeuwkop. We're going to go too deep. At that stage, you're going to have to settle to tuck in behind, and I have to say, George, there aren't many more things intimidating than seeing a Bentley hurling itself at you, knowing that it has gone a bit too deep into a corner.
I mean, that kind of ended okay for Lionel Clue. They could have really seen themselves looping it around. We saw the weight transfer go towards the back then, and the 969 of Lionel Clue did a good job to just keep the car facing the right direction. Had to just back off the power and make some corrective steering, and managed to hold themselves in it. But yeah, unfortunately, a bit of a dangerous situation to be in. Lucas Krazer still continues on to that hunt for second place. The 367 Bentley All In Racing doing a good job at staying ultra defensive and using the traffic to their advantage, but the number 97 has negated that gap that was caused out by a lot of the backmarked traffic, and has been able to get themselves back into contention of being able to make a pass at some point now, as we see Robert Hart in the background just diving to the outside line, allowing both these front runners to come on by. And I guess this is costly to Krazer and Krayal as they try and catch up to that lead number 96. The two of them aren't going to be making progress in doing so, whilst they caught out in battles themselves. But of course, the backmarking traffic going to sort of stop them from being able to go nose to tail time and time again. Every time we started getting a little hint that might be the move that's coming, we just see that being taken away as the other slower cars on the circuit need to be cleared safely, and not a lot of space to do so here at Kyalami, but a lovely splitter view coming out from the front end of the number 97 Audi. We get to see the headlights lighting up or the racing circuit that you need to see. It always looks a little bit darker when we go to the camera views from the outside of the track and the helicam and things like that. But you can just see how well those beams do when you are on board with the splitter cam.
Yeah, there is so much that you can see with the splitter cam and how close it is to the circuit, the sensation of speed. And of course the elevation changes as well, which are so much more apparent. And, you know, like we've spoken before, George, the TV cameras just don't do it justice to a lot of circuits. You know, around here, the elevation changes, how steep some of the, you know, the corners and the hills are at some of these places. And I think particularly, I think Spa is one of those circuits especially where, you know, I've been told it doesn't matter how many times you see Eau Rouge and Radion on the TV, it never prepares you for when you see the scale of the corner in the real world. And I know that Kyalami is quite similar in the same sense here, that some of the corners and the elevation changes, you just can't really comprehend them in the same sense in the real world to the TV, and I'm sure you can relate to that.
For sure, I've got experience just kind of walking around the circuit. For me, I've never been able to really drive it myself. I've gone on some nice hot laps due to track days with a very talented co-driver taking me around and being able to just kind of experience what it's like, but certainly not in something like what is these GT3 cars. I actually went to an Audi Sport Day one time with Alrik Ensslin from Toro, and the two of us got to have a go around being driven around in just a street version of the Audi R8, and I can tell you it was probably one of the highlights that I've had in my life. I really enjoyed it, so hopefully more of the real life experience to come in the future for me. I would love to be able to go to more track days and to get more experience. I'm not even someone that needs to drive it. I'm happy to go around with a certified professional to show me what it's like, and just to experience that with my body very wide going to Bentley out of barbecue. Is this the opportunity for Crazy? I think it is. Coming into the right-hander of Sunset, move done. And we do get to see a Side Max Motorworks 1-2. We'll get a race replay of how that happened coming in to the right-hander for barbecue. We can just see that Bentley going a little bit too wide, having to just also correct themselves, make sure that they kept the car facing the right direction. And Lucas Kraser going to be able to leap at that opportunity and put the number 97 behind their sister car, but it's not done and dusted just yet. Round the outside, tries the 367 at the top of the hairpin of Leeuwkop, and you can just see that Bentley looking a little bit less stable than what we've seen it looking, and the number 97 managing to just put a couple of car lengths between them as they go down through the mine shaft.
And I'm sure that Lucas Kraser got a big round of applause from the rest of the SideMax team when that move got done. Of course, that means that 96 and 97 are now in the top two, and it's a 1-2 for SideMax Motorworks, officially confirmed as they cross the line. And a long way to go in this race yet, obviously not even at the halfway point, but it's looking pretty good for the for the race favourites. And it's kind of a shame, George, because I do think to myself, you know, whilst we were away and we've come back and we've seen everything that's happened, I just think to myself, what would the race look like right now if GTWR was still in it?
I mean, that's a question I ask myself a lot. It's not really fair to kind of discount the fact that GTWR was having a power race to start off with, and unfortunately it's not gone their way. I think we see Alrik Ensslin actually picking up a drive-through penalty in that 696. I think that was for track limits that were exceeded, so that's quite a big hit for Toro. And I was talking about Alrik Ensslin when we went around here at Kyalami, and I didn't get to finish off the points. It's just how that elevation changes up at the top of Leeuwkop. You know, we've had some good events coming out there, and I've been able to walk up the hill just from a spectator point of view. Every time I've gotten up to the top, I always ask myself why I've done that, because it's quite a hill climb getting up, getting down, a little bit better, but it certainly is a very interesting course that doesn't quite get broadcasted across to the viewers at the change in elevation that's out here. You talked about Spa. I think that's on my bucket list of tracks to go and visit before I die, and I think with making the move over here to the UK, hopefully when things all open up in the future, we'll be able to go and check out some of the racing that takes place there at Belgium.
Yeah, Spa's definitely on my list as well, but I suppose being in the UK now, though, George, you're going to have to... I'm going to make you experience, not you're going to have to, I'm going to make you experience some of the British circuits. Particularly Donington Park, my own favourite. The British Kyalami, as Jesse Lee once dubbed it. And I'm not quite sure I would agree with that sentiment, but there definitely are some fantastic racing circuits in the UK and across Europe as well. Maybe we can do a road trip at some point, and
Yeah.
we can do a tour of all of Europe's greatest circuits.
that would certainly be quite cool. I'd be up for it. So one day in the future, when we are outside of the pandemic and things open back up to regularity, we can hopefully plan something like that out. And of course, lots of people on this side of the world that I'd love to have a meetup with, that I've only had the pleasure of either working with online or watching them race. I think all on my bucket list to be able to meet up and kind of integrate and see what people do on this side. Triple Seven here is doing a good job at putting some pressure onto the number 48 Porsche in front of them. That's the battle for what will be P25. Souza in that 48, Loureiro in the 777, and the Porsche goes quite deep, coming down into the braking zone for Crocodile, and the two of them will go train-like through Cheetah, just following each other along and trying to find themselves into a position that they can just improve their position. I mean, we talked about it up at the front. We saw a battle for P2 and 3, and we don't always get to catch all the race action on the circuit all the time, but across the field there's just a continuation of drivers trying to improve themselves. As going into Crowthorne there, Souza looking stable, and looks like Loureiro just trying to see if they can maybe put them off a little bit. Also at the same time, maybe just making a bit of a braking mistake, just catching the car, but not going to be too costly. Just ducking and diving, weaving into the mirrors, just trying to see if they can force the error from the Porsche, make them outbrake themselves and allow them to get through.
Yeah, just trying all those little tricks is what Niki Lauda once called them. Anything that you can do, I will do as well. And just little things to put the driver off in front of you. And as long as it's not too excessive, it's all fair game. And some great racing going out here, and this is for 25th place at this point in time. And just looking up a bit further on the board, George, I've noticed that Ulrich Enslin is back in the Toro car, but their car's managed to pick up a 15-second penalty.
So I'm just having a look through our steward's reports here, and it looks like on lap 368 getting allocated a 15-second time penalty for causing a collision. So not too much to clarify what that's for in terms of who it was with, but certainly not a place that Toro wants to be. They had a drive-through penalty for track limits, as far as I understand, we saw coming through, and then a 15-second time penalty coming up here added onto the clock. They've still got some time behind them as King is trailing on, but the number 87 will be just heads down. You see drivers in front picking up penalties, means that there's opportunity for you to get something done.
Yeah, and a 15-second time penalty, which will have to be served at their next pit stop. Sure, Ulrich Enslin won't be too happy about that penalty, but at this point there's not really much you can do. You've just got to live with it and carry on with your race. And speaking of carrying on with the race, the 777 unfortunately having to back off from the 48 at this point in time because they're having to let one of the faster cars through. I believe that's the number 11 Audi, just making its way through, and the Porsche then has to go wide at the Crocodiles, and all of a sudden it's all square even again.
What is giveth can also be taken away, and what's taken away can also be giveth. And the 777 going to be benefiting there. Nice exit coming out through Ingwe, getting himself into the slip behind as they chase down on the number 48.
And as we continue onwards with this race, we have a guest joining us in here for an interview, and it's a man that George and I know fairly well, and it's a name that a lot of the fans from the international scene will probably know fairly well. It's one of the drivers for the number 96 SideMax Motorworks team. It is Killian Ryan Meenan. How are you doing, Killian?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. I mean, we've been enjoying sitting here for, what is it now, George? Like 6-7 hours, just watching the race. I'm pretty sure it's been a bit more relaxed than your stint.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't supposed to start initially, so I woke up just for the driver briefing, and then getting the pressures and stuff because Malinowski was supposed to start. Then he had the issues he had with the server desync, and we couldn't. And then I was just kind of thrown in. So I've only done 2 stints, but it'd be good. Me and Michael now we'll go through the night. George is gonna get some sleep because he's actually doing some real life stuff tomorrow, and it's just gonna be us two just plowing through. Should be good.
Well, I mean, you guys have. I mean, we said it. I think we've said it too many times, but you guys have been here before, a couple of times
Yeah,
in this situation. You know, leading this exact race, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was a shame to see the GTWR team retire. Obviously, through I think it was a power outage happened for Simonini at the time of the disconnect. But I mean, you guys have soldiered on through this race, and at this point in time, you could possibly be looking at 2 cars. Well, you've got 2 cars on the podium at this point in time, possibly 2 cars to finish in a 1-2. And I mean, what is it about SideMax Motorworks and Kyalami?
I don't know. We were asking ourselves that as well. I mean, looking now, if you tune in, you see there's a 2-lap gap. It's like, oh, you know, they're kind of walking, but it's not the way we would have wanted to take the lead. We had been catching the GTWR car, and we felt like we could challenge them and race them. It was super close. I think there was only 8 seconds or something between us after, was it 8 hours when they disconnected, or 7 hours or something, and we obviously would rather beat them on track because of who was in that car. I mean, they had Pfeffer, Sherat, and Simonini. It's like 3 of the fastest guys there is. So to beat them on pace would have been amazing. That being said, obviously we're not sad that we're in the lead. It's just the way we're in the lead isn't ideal. But having 2 cars, P1, P2 now for the team is obviously great. But there's still just nearly 13 hours to go. So who knows? Anything that's happened up to this point can happen to anybody else. So it's definitely not in the bag. It's nowhere near. I mean, we still have to do the whole night, survive being tired and everything that comes with that. So look, we'll just do what we've done for the last 2 times and just try and plow out the stints and plow out the laps. And yeah, it's just a bit of the stress is off now, having the gap, but we just got to keep the head down and keep putting in the laps, not make mistakes. It's super easy here to put it in the wall. It's somewhere like the curb at Cheetah. It's super easy to just wreck the car, and you can lose like easily a lap or 2 on damage. So you just got to be aware of that stuff. But no, it's good. We have the car feels good. Everyone feels good in the car. And yeah, we're just happy doing laps.
I think Killian, from my side, just as a commentator and of course a spectator as well, I think we kind of we feel the same way. We would have loved to see a SideMax battle against GTWR. So it is a bit sad that they did disconnect there, and I'm glad that you can also just highlight that you know, for yourselves, it's not something that you wanted to just kind of hand it over. You guys were closing down, and we were set to see a battle take place between the 2 of your teams. But you know, this is sim racing, I suppose. This is the way that sometimes the cookie does crumble. It's not like your own team didn't have a driver issue, you know, with being able to try and get in, and the desync stuff is super strange sometimes with the way that ACC goes. And for some of us that I suppose have been in this from, very early on through the beta phases and whatnot, there have been these kind of issues that do come through. It's sometimes just out of your control.
Yeah, it's a really rare issue, this one in particular. Normally the entry list issues is just like it's your own fault if you mess up the join order, or if two people join at the same time, if the person who joined first leaves and you duplicate an entry. But in this case, we can see that our fourth driver is connected, and we can choose him, and we think that if we select him he'll be able to leave the pits, but we don't think he'll be able to see other cars. To avoid it, what we're going to have to do at some stage in the race is he's going to have to do at least one lap, because if we finish the race and not all four of us have driven a single lap, we'll get disqualified as we cross the line. So he's going to have to do at least one. So we were going to put him in earlier and risk it. What we're going to do now, because we have this buffer, is we're going to extend as long as we can. We're going to try and build this gap up that if something does happen when he's in the car, we have enough time that we're not going to lose the gap we have. But yeah, we're gonna. They said in the driver briefing that there would be no max driving time per person. So I'm assuming the penalties that come through for that, because we will exceed, because we can only do 22 hours between the three of us. So we're assuming those will be removed as they come, and he can do his single lap and we'll get away with it. But yeah, it's really frustrating.
From our understanding, that is exactly what happens for those stint limits. So sorry, not the stint limits, but the max driving time for the drivers. So from our understanding, it's very much the same as yours, and I think there's quite a couple of teams that will have that same sort of issue that will come through. I think the stewards have made it very clear that those kind of things will be cleared out, because again, just something that's strange that has taken place shouldn't have been there in the first place. And
it's really rare. It's really rare. It's a super rare issue, and it's super specific as well, that you have like a couple of cars that are basically you can't see. But it's strange. It's a shame for Mache, since he put the car on pole, that he's not really going to get to drive. Obviously that sucks, but there's not much we can do. We can't send him out for an hour if he can't see other cars. It's just dumb.
Are you sure?
Are
you sure you don't want to play the challenge of you drive and I'll spot the cars?
Yeah, one person do the pedals and one do the wheels, sort of thing. Yeah, no, we'll have to be even for that one lap. We'll have to be, just on our toes. Just to give him all the information he can get, try and pit where he comes out in the clearest bit of track. But we don't, at this moment in time, we don't really know how it's gonna go. We're gonna have to risk it at some stage.
Pain and disappointment for Malinowski at this point in time, unfortunately. But I mean, Killian, the race, obviously, like you said, you didn't want to take the lead the way you have. But you do have that buffer now, and obviously not taking it for granted either. Kind of a sign of a very professional team, at least on the outside. A very professional team that you guys probably know what it's like to maybe take it for granted and lose it, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we know that there's still 12 hours left, and what happened to them could easily happen to us. So while we can drive around and there's not much pressure to actually race, there's not someone right behind us, it's still, you can't just relax the whole time, so you're kind of just on edge. You kind of, when we're in this position where we have a gap and you feel good, you're kind of just waiting for something bad to happen, and it's nice when it doesn't. But yeah, the last hour, when you're in the lead and you're pushing to finish, you just want it to end. Like, if we could put the flag out now, we would, but we can't.
Still a lot of time on the clock, right?
I know.
We only we're 30 minutes away from getting to the halfway mark, which I know it's just a crazy thing to sort of conceptualize, going live at 12 o'clock South African time, ending on Sunday at 12 o'clock. when we see that checkered flag and only sort of half the race distance done. And I suppose, you know, anything can go wrong for any of the other teams. It can go wrong for you guys as well. You, of course, have to try and to make a plan with your fourth driver to just try and get him out on the circuit. And that can also just be something super dangerous. So I suppose for the viewers, at least, there's a little bit of maybe some controversy that can come. I'm not saying I want that to happen, Kylian. It's Ryan and Mike Jones's job to add curses and Jesse Lee.
Mike has already messaged me, don't worry.
Of course. But yeah, it's actually been super nice to just have a little chat with you and just get a little bit of insight into how your team's doing. I think you know, from us here, it's always sort of, oh, they must be so chuffed to be up in the lead, but it's a little bit nice to hear that you guys are you know, a bit saddened by the way that it happened, because it is sad that GTWR had that disconnect. You mentioned it, 3 of the fastest drivers that we have in ACC, and it would have been really nice to see a big power battle going down between the 2 teams. But is there anything else that you think needs to be considered here for your team coming into the almost the halfway mark?
Nothing that I've thought of. I mean, it doesn't mean something's not going to jump out and surprise us, or that we haven't thought of something. But at the moment, everything is relatively going to plan. Yeah, we just keep doing what we're doing, keep putting in the laps, and just drag that timer down.
Ryan, is there anything else that you have for Kylian here? I mean,
there's many things I have for Kylian, but
I mean,
but we'll leave that for another day.
Things that we can say on the stream. Ryan, do you have anything else you want to add?
I mean, from my side, obviously, I've known Kylian for the better part of over a year now.
For my entire sim racing life, believe it or not. Literally, the first league I did was the one that we were in. With Tinko as well. I think that was also Tinko's
It was with Tinko. George was in. George was in that one as well. I think all 3 of us were in that.
Yeah, that was the first league I ever did.
In the monsoon conditions.
That Misano race, yeah.
Oh my god, never forget.
But we've obviously, you know, we've obviously spoken a lot, and you know, you guys have really come out as one of the truly elite teams in ACC. I mean, I know before SideMax Motorworks really, you know, started to get into ACC, there was Racing Line Motorsport, there was there still is FFS Racing, who are a very big contender, but now obviously with the scene being much wider, GTWR are in it, there's the Coach Dave Academy team, of course, and there's so many other teams.
G2,
SideMax is thrown up in there as well, Orion Race Team. I mean, from me, dude, I mean, people say you shouldn't be biased as a commentator. I can't help but be biased towards your team as a commentator because of the relationship that we've known each other on that personal level. But you know, all I can say is good luck for the rest of the race, and I know obviously, you know, you guys in the 96 car are going to be cheering on that 97 for that 1-2 finish.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kylian. Always a pleasure to have a little catch up with you guys. And I think Ryan's touched on it. Some really big names in sim racing coming out and just sort of stamping the name down and establishing the competitive nature of the esports, you know. And I also just want to add, I don't know who does your social media side for your team, but I appreciate their Twitter feeds and all the work that goes out into, you know, always presenting the team and getting that all done. I think phenomenal job from the team as a whole.
Thanks very much. I'll make sure I pass it on. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers, Kylian.
Well, Kylian Ryan Meenan from the SideMax Motorworks number 96, coming in and having a little bit of a chat with us to tell us his experience of the race. And it kind of just, from that conversation alone, George, you know, where he said, you know, I wasn't planning to start the race. you know, even for a team that on the outside it looks like they've had a flawless race, they're facing plenty of their own problems. You know, Malinowski couldn't start the car. Or he could, but it would have been very dangerous to do so, and now they face the issue of, you know, the fact that they need to put him in the car at some point, but due to this, you know, strange invisible car issue that some drivers are experiencing, you know, they're almost afraid to put him in the car for any extended period of time. And a team that looks comfortable and confident on the outside has got plenty of its share of problems at the moment.
For sure, it's I think maybe something that some of the other teams probably wanted to hear, that you know, it didn't all go smoothly for the other teams as well. And I think the American comms team, joined up by Greg earlier before we jumped in here, they were just referring it to the ghost car out on the circuit. Ooh, ghost car, you know, make it a little bit make it a little bit scary. But it's something that has occurred here, and we'd be crazy not to talk about it. Of course, that affects a lot of drivers. You're driving around, you have no idea that you're going to make a contact with a car, or that they're going to crash into you, because you just can't see it. And that's unfortunate. It's stuff that I would hate to see, you know, going forward in future events. Hopefully it's not something that plagues us here at RaceFace. And of course, Solidarity getting involved as well. So we've got a reputation to uphold. We want to you know, throw a good race. We want the drivers to have a good time out on the circuit. And unfortunately, we've had a couple of technical difficulties that come through. And all I can say is, going forward, once we have our debrief, can go through all those things and just see what can be done going forward to avoid these things. Of course, we try to have as many drivers join from across the world, you know, mostly South Africans joining up, and we've got the Europeans entering through, but like you mentioned, we've got some South and North American teams or drivers coming through, and it really is a learning curve for us at RaceFace. You know, this is something that I got involved in when I was back in South Africa. I just you know, started doing the commentary side, and this was something that I'd always wanted to do. I think every single event that I could was have Europe and South African drivers shooting out, and I still want to have some kind of a big team event, you know, the best of Europe, the best of South Africa. I think we have to find a middle ground on where those servers can be hosted out. Of course, this race taking place on European servers to try and negate the delay across the world to sort of a centralized place. And
the Sahara Desert. That's probably about the most middle ground you can get.
I mean, it all comes down to routing. It comes down to internet service providers. You know, you can kind of look at a region in general, but it doesn't mean that their specific ISPs and their providers really have the best routing out to those specific data centers and things like that. So it's a big planning thing, and a lot to go back to the drawing board with for our team at RaceFace.Pro. And you know, all I can say is that I'm just glad that we've still got a lot of entries here, slogging it out, dealing with some of those gremlins in a fun and friendly way. Some people have very much verbally sort of typed out their distaste at the way that things are going, and you know, I can't blame them for being upset about it. There's not much that we can do once we're live in a race, and we've had to kind of just deal with all of those things as we go, and just kind of say, well, you know, after this is all done and wrapped up, we'll be able to, you know, maybe attempt something different going forward. But I think all the money being raised out for the charity, the Quad Para Association of South Africa, I think that goes a long way. I think the cause behind that is great. I think all our sponsors have come through and provided a very nice prize pool that certainly for the South Africans is something that was worth fighting for. I know when it gets converted out into euros, pounds, dollars, that kind of stuff, it's not the strongest of prize pools that's ever been offered, but for a private event that has always been run on just a volunteer basis, I think that you know, there has to be some sort of positivity that can be taken out from it.
For sure, and a lot of people that have voiced their frustrations in the chat today, in the Discord, you know, like I said, it's hard to, you know, you you can't fault them at times for voicing those frustrations, and you know, a lot of the time people just want to vent. You know, they've got built up anger, they've got built up frustrations, and you know, shouting at their teammates doesn't solve the issue. Shouting at anyone else doesn't really solve the issue either. But sometimes you just feel better if you can shout it out. If you can voice your frustrations, and people will listen, people will give their input on it, and you know, and sometimes you won't get the answers you want, or you won't get the answers you expect. But I think a lot of the time people just want to let out the frustration, and once they have, they can probably look back on it in a week's time and see it in a different light. I always say the racing driver mentality is 2 weeks later they'll forget about the whole thing, and you know, to a degree that applies to sim racers as well. But you know, the race hasn't been perfect, but no race is perfect. And like you said, George, the most important thing is there'll be a debrief. They'll look into what went wrong. They'll look into what can be done better for next time. And you know, the organisers will come back stronger. And you know, whatever the result of this race, you make a perfect point that money has been raised for charity, for a good cause, and you know, people shouldn't forget that.
Did you, while you were talking about this, just see what happened to Lucas there? The pressure coming on from Van Lochenberg was there, and then suddenly Lucas was just sideways coming out of that corner. So not a great place for them to lose that position, but for the Black Widow Racing Vipers, they've managed to get themselves up. So we do see the Sidemax number 96 coming into the pit box. 406 laps we can see at the top of the timing sheet as we approach, or fast approach, the halfway mark, where we'll be handing over to our American correspondents, leaving the hooligans in charge of things while we catch up on some shut-eye and resume again in the morning. But 19 minutes to go until such a time. And we can see that we're going to have in excess of 800 laps done out on the circuit by the time all is said and done in this 24-hour Kyalami.
Yeah, I mean, I can see outside, George. If you just take a look to the right, you can see him peeking in the door already. He's almost opened the door at this point. Jesse Lee just trying to force his way back into the commentary box. Jesse, you've still got another 18 minutes. Calm down, man. But
they want to take away the thunder before
Team America. They're ready.
The lightning.
They're ready, you know. And,
permanently ready to invade. This is
their prime time. You know, this is Team America's prime time. This is when, you know, they want to be in the box, and of course it will be Nick Setnick covering the cameras, and it will be Mike Jones and Jesse Lee on the voice comms. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of American shenanigans. Oh, actually, George, considering you're in the UK now, I have to teach you the more British term that we use to call Americans. This probably be a great time as well. So, in South Africa, have you heard of the term Yankee?
I have heard of the term Yankee. So do we call them the Yanks?
Yes. So when you a lot of people in the UK refer to Americans as the Yanks. Say and it's Yankee in singular. So when Jesse Lee and Mike Jones come back in, you could hand off the stream and say we're going to pass you over to the Yanks.
I'm scared of messing that word up with a W, to be honest, so I'm probably going to avoid it. It's been a long day, Rai, and you know, I've really struggled with words out there. I didn't think it's time for me to learn new things.
That's fair enough, but you'll have to have mastered it by the time we meet up. I'm going to be testing you on your British English.
I mean, that, to be honest, half the time I've walked around here, I haven't understood what a lot of people are saying, because it's not just the good old Queen's English that exists over on the UK. There's a whole host of different accents and things to kind of master. And when I was walking through London the other day, I walked through and past a couple of people. I didn't even know that they were speaking English.
It is an incredible experience to see all the different kinds of English you can find across the UK and then obviously across the world as well. And if anyone is wondering at this point in time why we've gone on to English dialects, it's because there isn't too much happening on the circuit at the moment. I believe this is the closest battle on track. Johan Grobler in the Bentley, chasing down Moore in the number 13 Aston Martin, but still about second gap between the two of them, so no overtaking chances happening just yet between these two for 8th place.
Mike Jones was talking about when the teams are going to come in for a brake change on their cars, and they sort of predicted it would be in their stint that it would be, but our lead car, the number 96, Tortellini, in the chats, just giving us a little bit of behind the scenes, letting us know that they did a brake change, still coming out in P1 as well. So very dominant performance coming out from that number 96. Just a reminder, they were set to take that battle up against GTWR. And unfortunately, things didn't work out the way that GTWR wanted them to. I'm a bit of a GTWR fanboy. Ryan was a SideMax fanboy. I was a GTWR fanboy. But I think I still will be. I think there's lots still to come from the GTWR team.
Does that mean I'm winning so far?
I've had a long day, Ryan. Don't push me.
I have forgotten that momentarily that you are in the same country as me now. The very real threat of you showing up on my doorstep.
You're quite far north. I've learned that there are train lines that can take me there. But,
they're in the Midlands. We're not north.
Pretty far north from where I am here. It's a long travel to get there. So
unbelievable. You're already becoming British. You call the Midlands the north.
Yeah, when you're from London side, I mean, anything up more than an hour by train
north
is going to be, it's going to be in the north.
Oh dear.
So I think maybe we can bring Jordan Sheraton for an interview before we wrap things up. We heard from SideMax. Maybe we can hear from GTWR, get a little bit of insight into what happened to their drivers. So I know Jordan Sherritt's often ready to have a little interview. Maybe you can just jump in here before we hand over to the Yanks. Had to be very careful to get that right.
I mean,
with a Y.
The man's driven a Lamborghini. I can respect that.
In real life,
yeah,
in real life.
I know. In real life, has driven it was a Super Trofeo, wasn't it? I believe, was it? If I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I might be.
It was.
Yeah, got to drive
and
a
some of the
Lamborghini
road cars as well.
Yeah, I think they did, but yeah, got to drive a Lamborghini at Imola. I've got respect for that, and Jordan's a nice guy as well. So yeah, if we could get Mr. Sherritt in for an interview before we sign off for the evening, we have about 13 minutes left of our evening together, George.
We do, and then a little bit of well-deserved nap time before we wake back up in the morning to take over once again. But yeah, I mean, it's been a good 2 hours that we've been back here. Time has flown by, and with 12 minutes on the race clock till we get to the halfway mark, it feels like there is still a lot of racing to come.
Well, I mean, it feels like that because there is a lot of racing to come. I mean, approaching the halfway mark. How many times have we said the halfway mark in this 2-hour commentary stint? If anyone's counting at home. And that is one of the things that these 24-hour races will do to you is, as we continue to commentate, the hours just go by and, like I said, we wonder where all the action has gone. The drivers, they just keep doing the stints, they keep doing the laps, and they think to themselves, my word, when is this going to end? And, well, almost 12 hours in, we've had plenty of action so far, but joining us for a little bit of an interview before we sign off for the evening tonight, it is the man that was behind the GTWR car earlier on in the race. It is the man from South Africa himself, Mr. Jordan Sherratt.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Oh, Jordan's sounding a little bit husky there, as
It's nighttime.
it's nighttime. It's time to go to bed. It's been a difficult race for you guys, and very sad to see that you guys found yourself in that position. So we can just see Mora here, just under pressure. Sorry, Jordan. Before we go over there, Jay Krobler gonna get through on that Aston Martin, or are they? As they come down into the braking zone. Mora trying to find, I'm going to be on the inside of the number 13 then, as Borman just getting out of the way at the last minute and giving the room needed. So Jordan, give us a little bit of insight into what happened to GTWR and why you guys dropped out.
Yeah, so basically, obviously Georgia was driving and I was driving I was the first driver to connect, and I wasn't at my PC at the time that Georgia's power got cut. So 15 minutes later, I come back and the guys are just sitting here like, hey, we got disconnected and you were gone. So, we lost like 6-7 laps. So we just decided, the guys are concentrating on SRO. So they were like, well, let's call it a day. And obviously, it sucks, but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, you can't really predict the unpredictable, so, we just got to take it as that, and hopefully there's a new 24-hour that you guys can put up, and hopefully we can come back and show SideMax how it's done properly this time for the full race.
I like a bit of cheeky banter coming out. I mean, Jordan, you and I have had a good run in the sim racing world. We've sort of had a little bit of a bash heads at one stage and come together again to kind of understand what the sim racing world is all about. And I mean, from my side, just been able to see you go from strength to strength in the teams that you've been a part of.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty crazy journey. Thinking back to the first race that obviously you guys did, and then that's like the first time I actually joined, which was the beginning of, I think, Feb, and obviously that's when I started racing. And then obviously, coming through the ranks, obviously the bit of bashing heads between you and I, and coming to sort of a great friendship, and that
That is the start of all great friendships. I think is a little bit of a bashing of heads, but yeah, I had to jump in.
No, it's all good. But yeah, and then obviously just practicing, pushing hard, and obviously getting linked up with the right people at the right time, and you sort of promote yourself into a pretty good place. And I hope for many other South Africans, that can come to this, because I mean, we have the talent, and I think it somewhat shows. I guess people have had some bad luck, obviously. So, but I mean, going back to the qualifying, if you look at the qualifying, our SA boys have some pace, so it's a pretty good sign, and it gives us confidence, to actually now, hey, let's take on all the international guys, So it's pretty epic from me when I look at it that way.
And as connectivity becomes better and the routes and things between different countries improve, we start to see just how much more we can start to kind of push those limits of getting the intercontinental side of sim racing going. I mean, even with high ping, generally it's okay on track for people to go and be able to enter into events, but to me it's only stuff that's going to improve in the future, as we see Enslin making that move around the outside, going very wide out the exit of Cheetah, but still going to be along on the inside, or turning in is the Bentley, and Reynard getting caught out and getting sort of tangled in there. Enslin going to go through. We're going to get a race replay of that as we see Alaric Enslin very wide on the exit, taking to the dirt out of Cheetah, and then being on the inside line of the Bentley. He turned in, kind of closed the door, and getting a little bit tangled up. But yeah, Jordan, I mean, it's kind of what we want to see. We want to see more of the talent from South Africa being shown out to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the goal, and I think this is certainly the right path, or the first step that can make that happen. I think you know, I think most people see that now, and hopefully it's just a trend that continues, and you know, we actually capitalize on it and make moves to make that happen. And I think obviously with the partners that RaceFace has in this event, I think the sky is the limit, you know, even the moon, you know. So yeah, it's a start to many great things, and I'm super excited about this actually.
Indeed. George, it's been nice to just have a little catch up with you. Of course, we are approaching the next handoff to our American broadcasters. They're going to take us through a lot of this night's stint in the race. Any shout outs that you want to give in particular whilst you're out here on the stream?
That's a hard one, actually. Maybe to you guys, maybe to all the team in the background that makes this happen, all the sponsors, and yeah, I think without them, obviously this wouldn't be possible. So yeah, thank you guys for putting on a great show.
Jordan, it's only a pleasure. Thanks for being a gentleman and a scholar. Even though your team, had a little bit of those difficulties, good to see you still supporting the stream and giving us a little shout out there as well. Warm words go a long way, and we wish you the best of luck with your sim racing journey. And we certainly know we're going to see more of you and GTWR in future events.
For sure.
Night, Jordan. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch up with you again. But out on the circuit, Ryan, still the racing continues out. We see a lot of the drivers starting to push themselves to the limits, and with 4 minutes on the clock left of our racing stint, means we are getting closer to the handover to the American Dream Team. Of course, Nick Setnick, Mike Jones, and Jesse Lee will be taking over for the next 6 hours. So if you guys are worried that Ryan and I were getting tired and needing to go to bed, well, we got you covered. We got the Americans coming in to keep us up and keep us up to date with what is happening out on the racing circuit.
Yeah, Team Yanks will be taking over, and of course, Nick Setnick. I mean, shout out to the man. He's going to be doing, I believe, 6 hours of broadcasting, followed by a 2-hour break. Then he's going to be broadcasting to the end of the race, and then on top of all that, he's going to be broadcasting the 6 hours of Bathurst that the RCI Motorsport team is going to be racing in tomorrow afternoon.
It's a lot of broadcasting from Nick's side.
The man's pulling a mega broadcasting stint. Has to be said. Massive respect.
Have to give shout outs where shout outs are due. And right now on the racing circuit, a little bit of a calm before the storm. We see Grinvolt in that 666 catching up to the likes of Krobler in that 404. Just less than 0.8 of a second separate them out. Both cars sitting within the top 10, but always looking to improve their positions when we hit that halfway mark. Just 3 minutes on that race clock before that handover takes place. It's just gone at 2 minutes past 12. This is the Pure Storage Kyalami 24-hour in partnership with Solidarity E-Race and powered by RaceFace. All brought to you by our sponsors, NEC, DataSciences, Oxide, AMD, and SuperMicro. My name is George Smith. I've been in the box for the last 2 hours with Ryan Gill. We are both from Racing Club International, who are bringing you the broadcasting action with our host of commentators and broadcasters, and of course mixing it up with some of the local talent. We heard young Clark King on the stream earlier. Big shout out to him. Emerging talent. Really can't wait to see what Clark does in the future, whether it's in real life racing, broadcasting, or in the sim racing world. And of course, the man who's done a lot of real life racing himself, Greg Maloney, has been here from the start, also joined in with the American team before we jumped into the box. And big shout out to Greg. He's done real life work in the commentary scene, done some actual racing as well. Big bike fan. And an absolute legend when it comes to the sim racing world now, because he's getting more involved, getting his name out there, and joining us here in the sim racing world like he has done in the real life racing world.
We need to get him in a car at some point. See how he can do on the sim, shall we?
think at some point we definitely have to set that up. Definitely see how that pans out. And it's always cool to see that crossover coming down. Looking at Jan Onorati from the Racing Light Motorsport team. And they've also not really been too much of a feature when it comes to things to talk about here. But the 192 Audi doing a good job at just keeping themselves in that top 10. Currently sitting in 7th place and catching up to Keeble.
Yeah, Jan Onorati obviously heading this Racing Line Motorsport entry. We saw Davide Chiesa in there earlier on. And this car missing a couple of the, should we say, headline drivers for Racing Line Motorsport. Some of the names that people will be a lot more familiar with, like Kevin Siclari, Samuel Ratz. But make no mistake, Jan Onorati, Davide Chiesa, and I believe Emil Stanciu is also in this car. Plenty of talent amongst those 3 drivers as well. And 7th place, like you said, they haven't been the focus, but they're just quietly going about their business. And that's something that Racing Line Motorsport do very, very well. They kind of just, keep to themselves. They go about their business. And all of a sudden, by the end of the race, you think to yourself, well, how did they get all the way up there?
It is always what I think when I look at the Racing Line Motorsports entry. I was like, how did they slip themselves back up there again? And time again they deliver. So we're just starting to prep ourselves then for the handover to the American broadcasting team. And we'll I think we're going to pick a car to ride on board with, Ryan, until we make that handover. We're just getting waiting for the thumbs up from our other team to let us know when we can let them take over. I said it before, the hooligans are about to come into town, so those that are still on board watching with us in the live streams, you're in for a treat. My favorite American dream team coming in to handle the big 6-hour stint.
Yeah, and of course, you and I will be back tomorrow morning for another couple of hours towards the back end of the race. I believe we'll be coming back into the commentary box with about 5 or 4 hours left on the clock. And I am very, very excited. I will be excited. I am excited. I don't know which tense I'm supposed to be using. I'm excited to see how the race changes over the next 7 to 8 hours whilst I will be away. But it is time for us to say goodbye and good night for the evening. We'll jump on board with Mr. Jan Onorati, and the stream will go to black just for a moment, but when we come back, it will be the American Dream Team of Mike Jones and Jesse Lee to take you through the next 6 hours of the race.